Hey kawan, welcome to EDCReady. Today, I'm going to be doing a comparison video between these two knives. We have the Spyderco Dragonfly in VG10 and FRN, and I'm comparing it with, I gotta say, my favorite small knife right now, the Civivi Mckenna in D2 steel and G10. So for this video, I'm going to be comparing, I'm going to be first talking about what is similar about them, and then I'm going to be talking about what is different about them and what kind of person suits which knife. Personally, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a spoiler. This knife to me is my favorite small knife right now. In fact, I am going to be selling this knife right after I shoot a few more videos with this guy. But without further ado, let's get into the video. First thing I want to talk about is the pocket clip. So the pocket clip here, they're both deep carry pocket clips, and they both have the same problem, which is that they both have these really tall screw heads that go up into the actual pocket clips right here. So the problem is that if you have a thicker pair of pants or whatever, if you try to kind of put this up into your pants and try to get it up all the way into the deep parts here, they can get caught up on these screw heads right here. So keep that in mind. Another thing that is similar is the thickness of the handles of the knife. So as you can see here, they're both really thin knives, and in fact the Dragonfly is just a little bit thinner than this guy in the handle, but to be honest, they're both really thin and they both fit really well in the pocket in terms of its thinness. In terms of lightness, they're both really light. This guy comes in at, I believe, 1.2 ounces or so. Maybe slightly more, I kind of forgot, but it's definitely slightly lighter than this guy. And then this guy comes in at 1.8 ounces. There's not that much of a difference. We're talking about around half an ounce of a difference. They're both, at the end of the day, less than 2 ounces. They're both really light. They're both, at the end of the day, lighter than that ounce per blade length standard that a lot of people use in the knife world. So they're both very nice. Another thing that is similar about them is that they both have a hole in the blade. Okay, this is the round Spidey hole. This is a hole that Elijah Isham tends to like putting in his knives. The only problem is this has a function. This is an opening hole. This doesn't really do anything. Not that big of a deal, but I just thought I would mention it. Now, both blades are really thin. Both these blades are amazingly thin and amazing cutters. This is slightly thinner at 0.09 inches, and this is slightly thicker at 0.1 inches. They're both full flat grinds. The Dragonfly is a bit taller of a full flat grind, so this should get a little bit thinner at the edge of the blade right here. But you know what, both of these knives come out of the box really sharp, and they're both fantastic cutters. Another thing about these knives is that they both have a really sharp needle point kind of tip. The Dragonfly has this nice wedge that comes to this nice almost needle point right here. This knife is a sheep's foot. It also comes to a nice point right here. Another advantage of these two blades is that they both have very minimal bellies. So in some knives you can get quite a bit of a belly and then it kind of goes all the way up here. These knives tend to be a little bit straighter, which I like because in my day-to-day life I don't do this kind of slicing very much. Most of my slicing are more of a pull cut kind of thing or a push cut kind of thing, which these straighter blades actually help out in that domain quite a bit more. You just penetrate and pull. Alright, so that is pretty much the similarities of this knife. Let's go over the differences of this knife. First of which, let's go from the blade. The blades are a little bit different. As you can see here, this is a longer blade. This is a 3-inch blade compared to this, which is about 2.25 inches. Definitely a lot shorter, and it's even shorter because the sharpened edge is just around 2 inches. This has a sharpened length, almost the entire length of the blade, which is fantastic. So in this knife, it's 3 inches, and then it feels like a longer knife. Okay, it feels like a longer knife than it actually is because of this long blade and long sharpened edge that you have right here compared to this, which to be honest can feel a little bit short. A lot of times cutting with this knife, I feel like I have just the right amount of blade. Cutting with this knife on the other hand, sometimes I feel like there's just not enough blade and I end up catching myself in the finger choil or catching myself in the hand a little bit as I cut through it, or as I push through and I pull through, it can kind of get caught up in the sharpening choil right here. Another difference is VG10, great budget steel, stainless steel. We have D2 here, which is also another great budget steel. It holds an edge slightly longer than VG10. It is definitely a tougher steel than VG10. However, it is not a stainless steel. So if you're in a situation where you experience a lot of rusting, maybe you live in hot and humid Malaysia, or you live in near the ocean or whatever, you're going to prefer this knife over this knife just because stain resistance here is a little bit better. Another thing about this knife is that this knife uses a liner lock compared to this knife that uses a back lock. So a back lock is a really nice, solid, strong lock. However, I tend to fidget a lot with my knife, and this knife is much better at fidgeting, has a much better fidget factor than this knife. Back locks just don't. Although this knife, after some time and some cleaning, it can fidget and flake out like so. It's not a bad fidgeter, but this just comes in a little bit better of fidget tool right here. It drop shuts a little bit if you shake it up a little bit. Another difference right here is that this doesn't really have any washers because it's running on plastic. So if you don't take care of it, if it hasn't worn in yet, it can get a little bit stick slippy, it can get a little bit rough. Right now this, after putting some oil and a lot of fidgeting, it has really improved. This on the other hand is running on bearings. So the difference here is that the bearings are gonna give you a smoother action, like you can see right here. But the fact that there are no bearings here means that this is actually a little bit more resistant to things like gunk or grime or whatever. So if you're the kind of guy that doesn't, or the kind of girl that doesn't like to take their knives apart and clean it up, then this might be the slightly better knife for you, because bearings tend to be a little bit more of a diva. Now, ergonomics. Both knives are actually really ergonomic in the hand. However, if you have a bigger hand, I actually say go for the smaller knife, which is right here. Why? Because this knife, even though it's slightly longer in the handle, but gripping it, it can feel a little bit small sometimes, okay? And then the ergonomics itself doesn't really feel that comfortable. You get a little bit of a hot spot of the clip here, and then once you hold it in, if you have small knives like me, it's fine. But once you get to a bigger hand, I can see that you're gonna have a little bit more of a problem wrapping your fingers around, wrapping your hands and your palms around this. This, on the other hand, because it is slightly shorter, however, it is curved, okay, and it also has this forward finger choil that does eat up a bit of the blade, but it gives you a lot more place to put your hand. So this actually feels a lot longer than it actually is. The difference here is that this blade, when you use it, the blade feels longer than it actually is in this knife, and in this knife the handle feels a lot longer than it actually does in this knife. So if you have slightly bigger hands, this will actually fit your hand a little bit better, just because of the way your fingers and your hands can wrap around it. Both of them have this nice like pinky ramp right here that is great for holding it in and penetrating it and pushing it in. Another thing is that this has a nice finger choil and has a nice thumb ramp, so you can really pinch this knife, and in fact you got potentially a nice pinching grip here, and then you can also place your finger right here to do a little bit more precision cutting, and in fact you can even do the whole spidey hole pinching right here, and then pinch it and cut right here. Here, this position is very comfortable. You get a nice like finger position right here, but you can't really choke up. You can choke up, but I don't advise it, because it's very easy to slip off of this finger choil and then get onto the blade right here. So I don't advise that. So this is more of a holding it like this, like a saber grip or your finger grip right here. So this just gives you more ergonomic options. Unfortunately, in terms of its opening mechanism, you have a nice flipper tab right here. This is a front flipper, which some people kind of don't like. It's kind of down to your personal preference, but the flipper here is nice and rounded. It's very comfortable to use, whereas this guy, the opening hole here, you might want to take like a little sandpaper to it, because it's pretty sharp. To be honest, it's pretty sharp. In fact, going around the knife, of course the blade is going to be sharp, but around the knife a lot of parts here are sharp. The sides of the jimping are rounded off, but they can still be a little bit sharp. The insides of these FRN is a little bit sharp. The spidey hole is a little bit sharp. So even though ergonomically it fits in the hand well, however the finishing tends to be a little bit rougher on the hands compared to this. The finishing here, all the edges that are not supposed to be sharp are not sharp. All the edges here are rounded off, the liners are rounded off, you have nice bead blasting on the liners, you have a nice bead blasting down here, all these edges are nice and rounded, so you only get really one hot spot, which is off of here. But other than that, even though this is ergonomic, but this just feels a little bit rounder and softer in the hands. So it's really just down to you guys. In terms of the handle material, we have here FRN, which is a really underrated handle material in my opinion. You have a lot of good grip here because of the bidirectional texturing here. And then if you're the kind of guy that kind of sweats a lot or wants to use gloves or whatever, this is a better knife for you. This uses G10, which according to a lot of people, is more of a superior material. However, it can be a little bit slippery if you're really like being rough with it, but at the same time, it has that perfect balance of being smooth and at the same time having enough grip for kind of everyday kind of usage. Granted, you're not going to be doing a lot of hard use kind of thing, hard use kind of cutting with this, and you know what, it's a small knife, you don't want to hard use it anyway, and plus it's a pocket knife. Another advantage of this FRN is that it has this little spidey, soft, smooth area right here, so your clip goes onto the area. It's pretty nice and smooth. However, not that big of a deal here. This G10 right here is pretty smooth as well. So, conclusion, which is the better knife? Okay, let me tell you why this is going to be the better knife for me. It is this spidey hole makes it really wide in the pocket. Okay, so even though this is lighter and thinner, but when you place it in the pocket, you're gonna feel this more, because as you put your hand in the pocket, you put this in the pocket, your hand goes in, you're gonna rub off on this, a little bit more, just because there's this hump that comes into play. This, on the other hand, there's almost no hump. It's a very, very narrow knife, and that's kind of why I've been using this knife every day. It is just as good of a cutter. Okay, the blade feels longer and it feels more usable. The sheep's foot blade has become currently my favorite blade shape. Great for all the same cuts that I use the Dragonfly for, except that it's a little bit longer. It feels like a longer blade. In the hand, it feels nice and soft, as in no sharp edges. You don't get as great of an ergonomic. It doesn't grip as well as the Dragonfly, but my kind of cutting doesn't require me to have that kind of grip of the Dragonfly. It's nice and deep carry as well as the Dragonfly, with the same setback, which is these screws right here, and it carries really nice in the pocket, really small. You almost don't really feel this at all. It's like carrying around half a pen in your pocket, not even a full-size pen. Now, so if you're the kind of person that is really worried about corrosion, and you're kind of person that doesn't really like taking care of your knives much at all, you don't like taking it apart, oiling it or whatever, go for the Dragonfly. It's a great knife, don't get me wrong, it's a great knife. It will serve you well, it served me well. And if you're the kind of guy that maybe likes, or it's a little bit short on pocket space, you like a slightly better fidget factor, and then you're kind of guy that doesn't mind taking your knives apart and maintaining it, then this is going to be the knife for you, and this is definitely the knife for me. Alright guys, again, no hate on the Dragonfly. I really like it. I wish I could keep it. If my wife told me that she wants this knife, I will just give it to her, because it's that great of a knife. Unfortunately, she doesn't, so this knife is gonna unfortunately be sold off after I shoot a few more videos with it. Okay guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something about both these knives, and of course, stay ready.